Hello guys, this is your friend. We are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Fox Emperor Naruto built a powerful harem with Hinata, Ino, Kyubbi, Tenten and Anko, Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start a new fanfic. He has a new goal and so does the Kyubbi. A young boy with blonde hair, perhaps the age of 11 or 12, burst through the complicated passageways that was Konoha's red light district. Behind him was a crowd of drunken civilians and a few ninja, all wielding assorted weapons. Tears of fear and sadness rolled down the face of the child as his situation became more desperate. The angry horde was getting closer to him with each turn he took. Years of neglect and a diet of low-quality food had left the boy weak, proving to be a huge disadvantage as he was finally cornered in an alleyway. With nowhere else to go but up, the boy started climbing until a kunai found its way into his back, sending him plummeting down onto the trash-covered ground with a loud thud. Why are you doing this to me? Asked the boy as he managed to slowly get back up onto his feet. The boy visibly flinched as he pulled the kunai out of his back, splattering hot, red blood onto the ground. This had happened every year for the young ever since he could remember. Every year on his birthday, October 10th, the villagers would gang up on him and beat him. Most of the time they would only beat him until he lost consciousness, but sometimes they would hurt him enough to send him to the hospital for a few days. He didn't know what he did to deserve this. All they did was beat him, and when they didn't, they just ignored him. He felt so lonely. He just wanted to be acknowledged. Why did everyone hate him? Demon, you dare defile my ears with your words. I'll kill you, cried one of the shinobi as he threw a set of shuriken towards the young boy. The shuriken embedded themselves into the boy's body, sending a loud piercing scream to echo off of the walls. The child slumped down to his knees, feeling life leave his frail body as his blood ran down his shirt and onto the ground. Mustering all of his strength, he asked one last desperate question. What did I do to deserve this? You disgrace the memory of our beloved Yondaime Hokage. Do you want to know what happened? The Yondaime never killed the Kyubbi. No, he sealed the demon inside of you. You're the Jinchuriki of the Kyubbi. Now die like the demon you are, shouted one of the civilians, eliciting sadistic cheers of approval from the mob despite the law saying those who revealed such information were to be put to death. The boy's eyes widened considerably as his mind shattered. They had known all this time. That was why they hated him. He wanted to scream, but before he was even able to open his mouth, someone sent a kunai right into his throat, sending him slumping to the ground with a thud. His vision blurred as the last thing he saw was the red Uzumaki swirl on the back of a Chunin vest. The last thing he heard was the crowd's cheer of approval. Then everything went black. As the crowd dispersed out of the alleyway, grins on their faces at the prospect that the demon was finally dead, an old man burst through and immediately fell to his knees as he saw the body of the boy. The blood seeped into his pristine white robes, but he didn't care as he clutched the boy to his chest. Naruto, what have they done? He said solemnly, tears starting to flow down his cheeks as he looked into the heavens above. Minato, if only you could see what Konoha has become. Naruto's mindscape. Drip, drip, drip. Asterisk. Naruto wandered aimlessly through the tunnels of what appeared to be the sewers. He didn't know where he was. All he was capable of doing right now was commanding his feet to move. Strangely enough, he felt like an invisible force was guiding him through the seemingly abandoned maze. Did they dump me in the sewers? Thought Naruto as he continued dragging his tired body through the thick, filthy water. He continued walking for what he perceived as several minutes until he found himself in front of a large metal cage with a paper seal in the middle. He no longer felt the invisible force guiding him as he stood in front of the intimidating metal bars. Hello, he called out. His voice seemed to echo off the round walls, bouncing off every surface until his voice faded away. Ah, it seems my container has finally come to visit me, boomed a voice, filling the entire chamber with strong vibrations. Naruto barely flinched. Who's there? He asked, as he squinted his eyes to see where the voice was coming from within the darkness inside the cage. Kyubbi no Yoko, at your service, boomed the voice once more, starting in a very deep and masculine voice that slowly turned slightly more feminine with each syllable. The Kyubbi's silhouette appeared shortly after. As it got closer to the metal bars, it revealed its magnificent size to Naruto. The fierce features of the Kyubbi barely fazed Naruto. What surprised the Kyubbi the most was that Naruto had actually walked forward instead of cower away. Naruto's eyes widened slightly as it studied the Kyubbi before dimming in defeat. So it's true then. I am a demon, sighed Naruto as his once full of life cerulean eyes glazed over and turned cold and dead. The Kyubbi's ears drooped slightly as it stared at the boy before him. Shortly after, Naruto looked back up at the Kyubbi and met his stare without hesitation. It appears that my container is brave. Good. I can't have myself a cowardly container, it said as it dipped its head so that it could get a better look at Naruto. But you are wrong. It seems you do not know the difference between a scroll and a kunai, it said, confusing Naruto. What do you mean? Does a scroll become a kunai if a kunai is sealed inside of it? Of course not. Just as you are not a demon for having a demon sealed inside of you. You are simply the scroll while I am the kunai, explained the Kyubbi, getting an understanding nod from Naruto. So, where am I? Asked Naruto. This is your mindscape, Kit. You have absolute control in here because it is your mind, answered the Kyubbi, getting another understanding nod from Naruto. Give it a try, Kit. Think of anything and it will appear inside your mind. Naruto gave it a prompt nod before he closed his eyes. The damp sewers that once was slowly faded away and gave way to a beautiful meadow. The meadow had vibrant flowers scattered around and a soft hill with a tall apple tree for shade. The sky was set in a beautiful sunset, the same sunset Naruto watched every day on top of the Hokage monument. The cage that once held the Kyubbi was turned into a thin white collar with a tag that said seal. It seems my container also has a beautiful imagination, it said as it gazed longingly at the gorgeous scene created by its container. So, I've noticed that your voice has gotten a bit more girly. Are you a girl? Asked Naruto. It seems that you are also clever, very good. And yes, I am indeed a woman, she answered as she slowly morphed into a beautiful woman. She had long, rich red hair with elegant fox ears sticking out on the top of her head. She happened to be completely when she finished transforming, without a single strand of hair on her body except on her head. She had flawless, milky skin that most women would kill for. She had large 86D cup S, each adorned with a pretty pink nipple. She had a very shapely body, with a thin waist, a very toned stomach and beautiful, delicious thighs. Between her perfect thighs was a neat patch of trimmed red hair, above her pink slit. She was like a goddess, with a body so beautiful that it would drive men to murder if she ordered them to. Wow, said Naruto, eliciting a cute giggle from the Kyubbi. So, tell me Kit. What is your goal in life? Asked the Kyubbi. Naruto was taken aback by that question. If anyone had asked him that question on any other day, he would have proudly exclaimed his goal to become the Hokage. He didn't feel like the villagers deserved his protection anymore, not after how they had treated him. After a few seconds of deep thought, he replied. My goal in life is to make sure that no one else has to go through what I've been through. Jinchuriki or not. No matter what. He replied passionately. Good answer, Kit, she said as she suddenly placed a soft hand under Naruto's chin. She slowly raised his chin so that he was looking up at her and then she proceeded to plant a gentle kiss on his forehead, sending slight shivers down his spine. What was that for? Asked Naruto with a blush as he felt Kyubbi's soft lips leave his forehead. Just a small reward for all that you have endured, she replied warmly. Oh okay, he said, the touch of the Kyubbi's lips still lingering on his forehead. I've decided to make you my mate, she said suddenly with a smile. Wait. What? You heard me. I'm going to make you my mate and it won't do to have myself a weak mate, so I'll be making a few changes to your body, she replied with a foxy grin. What kind of changes? Asked Naruto. I'll be using my Yuki to do some tweaks to your genetics. By the time you wake up, you'll be stronger and faster. I will also be granting you a few Kekkei Genkai. I'll unlock one for you every once in a while since I do not want to overload your body, she explained elegantly. Naruto quickly nodded. Now, the first Kekkei Genkai I will be adding to you will be the Akuma Fakasui. It allows you to read emotions, see into people's minds and manipulate them, she began, but you have to be careful because once you use it, you can't reverse the effects of it. All right, he replied in understanding. It's weird that I'm going to be your future mate without even knowing your name, said Naruto, earning him a smile from the Kyubbi. You may call me Yoko, she replied with a flip of her silky, crimson hair. Her lips curved into a grin. Now go. Spread terror in the name of Kyubbi no Yoko. Make them fear me as they have before. Become my champion and I will help you achieve all of your dreams. She said proudly as she posed with her arm extended and her finger pointed towards the distance. With that said, Naruto could feel his mindscape fading, a bright light seemed to dominate his vision as he woke up. Konoha Hospital. The occasional beep of the heart monitor was there to fill the silence that was Naruto's hospital room. Naruto awoke slowly. His eyes opened groggily as he slowly raised himself, only to be stopped by the sharp pain that went through his body. He decided to lay back down. His movements didn't go unnoticed though as the Hokage quickly made his way to his bed. The old man gave him a sad smile. Naruto-kun, how do you feel? Asked Sarutobi. Like someone who was just used for target practice, replied Naruto in a very empty tone that worried the old man. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. If only I had No, it's alright, interrupted Naruto, there's no need to apologize. How long was I out? Asked Naruto. A little more than a day, replied Sarutobi, do you need anything? I'll be fine, Ji-san, said Naruto, giving Sarutobi his best winning smile. Alright, Naruto-kun, if you ever need me, you will know where to find me, said Sarutobi as he gave Naruto one last sad smile before standing up and leaving the room. The moment Sarutobi left the room, Naruto's smile immediately fell, revealing his void eyes and his frown. He turned his head to his right, so that he could gaze through the window into the village. Someday, I'm going to show you all exactly how it feels to be me, I'm going to burn this place to the ground, he thought as he mustered all his hatred into his eyes to glare at the villagers below. I'm going to make sure no one else has to go through what I've been through. Don't worry, Kit, I'll be here to help you, said Yoko in her melodious voice. How are you talking to me? Asked Naruto. Well, when you were sleeping, I found a way to slip myself through the seal and that is how I am communicating with you, she replied. Oh, alright, so when do we begin my training? Asked Naruto. As soon as we can. First let me tell you the changes I've made to your body, responded Yoko in her explaining voice. Naruto nodded. First, I have given you the Akuma Fakasui. To activate it, all you need to do is channel Yuki into your eyes and look directly into someone's eyes. To give orders, you have to just think of the orders you want to give them, explained Yoko. What if their eyes are closed? Asked Naruto. You can always just channel Yuki into your hand and touch them on the forehead, replied Yoko, to which Naruto nodded once again. Now, during your sleep, I've made your body stronger. You see, I've made it so that when you exercise, you'll gain twice the benefits. For example, if you exercised for 10 hours, you would be gaining 20 hours of muscle, and don't worry. I've made it so that you won't be too bulky, so you'll be lean and flexible, continued Yoko with a smile on her face. Now before we start training, we have seriously got to do something about your outfit, instructed Yoko. Alright, no resisting. Good. Henge yourself and let's head to the market district. With a nod, Naruto immediately pulled out tubes, hanged himself as a young, brown-haired, generic boy before opening the window and jumping out. Market District. Being hanged as a different person really changed the way people looked at him. It was like a weight was being lifted off Naruto's shoulders, if only briefly, as the villagers all smiled at him as he made his way to the shinobi clothing store. When he entered the store, he was welcomed instead of kicked out. This only made his hatred for the villagers grow more. "Hey, mister. Mind explaining all the stuff you got here?" asked Naruto in the most childish voice he could muster. "Sure. What do you need?" replied the man with vigor reserved only to the villagers. "Well, I need some new clothes," said Naruto as he looked up in thought. "Come with me," said the man as he gestured towards the clothing section. Naruto followed the man as he explained all the different materials and what they were good for. Some were woven with Kevlar, protecting against grazing blows, and some had steel plates attached to them for extra protection. There was camouflage clothing for almost every environment, even a pink one for hiding in sakura trees. "I'd like to have these," said Naruto as he picked out a subdued black trench coat, a thin light gray vest, a dark gray shirt and gray camouflage pants. "I would also like to buy multiple sets of these, except for the coat and vest." "Sure, young man," said the shopkeeper as he ringed up the prices of all the clothing on his register. "That'll be 50,000 yen, please." "No problem," said Naruto as he pulled the money out of Gama-chan. "Please come again, young man," said the shopkeeper as he waved off Naruto. "I will," replied Naruto out of habit as he walked out of the store, holding the bag of the items he had purchased. Naruto had to stifle a chuckle as he walked out the store. What child carried around 50,000 yen? Idiots, he thought as he looked up into the sky. "It's getting late. Let's head home so I can start your training tomorrow," said Yoko. With a quick nod in affirmation, Naruto immediately dropped his henge and disappeared into the night. He dashed over the buildings until he reached his run-down apartment. He just simply slid through the hole in his window and quickly went to his bed. A quiet groan escaped Naruto's lips as the morning sun blasted through his window, stabbing his eyes. Being the hyperactive person he is, he quickly got out of bed, did a few stretches, ate his breakfast ramen and headed to his bathroom. Following his usual routine, he brushed his teeth and turned on the shower. Taking off his clothes, he immediately noticed something was different. "Yoko-chan, when you said that you made some changes, did you mean this?" asked Naruto as he looked at his new manhood, which appeared to have grown several inches. "Well, any mate of mine has sure to have the right tools to please me in the bedroom," was Yoko's uncharacteristically shy reply. "Okay then," said Naruto as he stepped into the shower. A pleasurable shudder ran through him as the hot water soothed his new muscles. "Well, you see, if you are to be my mate, it's demon law for you to have a harem. So I have increased your drive, your stamina, the amount of seminal fluid you produce, and I have tweaked your instincts a bit," said Yoko quickly. I see," was Naruto's reply. "I'm going to start your training today, right after the academy," started Yoko in an attempt to change the subject, "so prepare yourself, because by the time I'm done with you, you'll know why I was known as the Cruel Queen." "I'm not that worried," was Naruto's reply as he began lathering his hair with a citrus-scented shampoo. "So what is your plan to destroying Konoha?" asked Yoko, "because right now, you've got the strength of, well, a 12-year-old. "I plan on increasing in strength and gaining some allies," replied Naruto. "I also plan on doing something about the damned civilian council." "Well, I'll be here if you ever need my help," said Yoko, "not like I can go anywhere else." "I appreciate all you've done, Yoko-chan," said Naruto, making Yoko blush. Not that she would tell him that. "Well, thanks," was Yoko's reply. "I feel like today is going to be a good day," thought Naruto as he got out of the shower. He quickly dried off and put on his new outfit, taking a moment to check himself out in the mirror as he put on his trench coat. It seemed that Yoko had increased his height considerably and increased the definition of his muscles. The different shades of gray provided good contrast to his tan skin and his blonde hair. Every piece of clothing fit him perfectly. How do I look? Good enough to be my mate, was Yoko's reply, to which Naruto nodded. Looking one last time at his room, he quickly ran out the door, to the academy. Academy grounds. All right, everyone please sit down, said Iruka. Everyone quickly sat down in their respective seats, though it took quite a while as Sakura and Ino were having a slap fight over who got to sit with their precious Sasuke-kun. Sasuke-kun is mine. Get out of the way, Ino pig, yelled Sakura. Shut up. Sasuke-kun is mine, shouted Ino. Why me? Why me? Why me? Groaned Iruka quietly as he began regretting his choice to become an academy teacher. You'll survive, was Mizuki's response to Iruka, to which Iruka just nodded before taking in a deep breath. You too. Sit down, shouted Iruka towards the two Sasuke fangirls, his head growing slightly bigger with each syllable. The two girls could only nod before sitting on the two other seats besides the one next to Sasuke. Okay. Good, said Iruka. Now for attendance. Aburame Shino, generic student, more generic students, started Iruka until he got to Uzumaki Naruto. There was no response. Uzumaki Naruto, he said a little louder. After a few seconds he looked up from his list and saw the last remaining empty seat, right next to Sasuke. Guess he's skipped Aga, started Iruka only to be interrupted as the door to the academy was kicked open. In came Naruto. Everyone was a little shocked, some of the girls even gasped. They were all taken aback by Naruto's new look. He was not wearing his ridiculous, kill me, orange jumpsuit. His new clothing seemed to give him a new aura of seriousness. The blonde gave a quick glare to all the other students before taking the last seat next to the last Uchiha. Sorry for being late, Iruka-sensei, said Naruto, ignoring all the stares he got. Oh okay. Next generic person, said Iruka, recovering quickly and stifling his surprise. Dobi, you'll never amount to anything, even with that new outfit, whispered Sasuke with a smirk to Naruto, to which Naruto just rolled his eyes. Ignore him, Kit, said Yoko. Don't worry, his words mean nothing to me. Iruka soon began his lesson on the Third Great Shinobi War. He began on how the Yondaime Hokage had won the war after defeating Iwa's army, and that's how he got the moniker of the Yellow Flash. The class took a little more than an hour, and truth be told, Naruto was on the verge of falling asleep by the end of it. Class ended when Mizuki took everyone outside for taijutsu practice. Everyone was always excited for taijutsu practice, so they quickly arrived at the dojo used by the academy. Everyone gathered around the ring except for Naruto, who just leaned by himself against the wall. Iruka saw this and quickly went over to him. What's wrong, Naruto-kun? Asked Iruka. Nothing's wrong, I'm fine, said Naruto with a smile on his face. Alright, Naruto-kun, if you ever need anything, you come and find me, replied Iruka before he was called away by Mizuki to supervise the other kids. When I burn this place to the ground, I'm going to spare you, said Naruto as he looked at Iruka. I like him, Kit, started Yoko. Who else are you going to spare? Ayame-chan and Tuki-san. They were always nice too. Hey, Dobi, come here and fight me, said one annoying Uchiha, to which Naruto just rolled his eyes. Naruto sighed as he made his way into the ring where Sasuke was waiting. The air around them seemed to get a little cold as they watched the opposites of the class glare each other down. The top student versus the dead last. To everyone that was there, Naruto seemed cool and collected, but that was not the case on the inside. What do I do, Yoko-chan? Asked Naruto, a little worried. You'll do fine, just let your enhanced instincts take over, was Yoko's lazy reply, to which Naruto nodded. So, Naruto trusted his instincts and he immediately went into a taijutsu stance no one had ever seen before. So the Dobi learned a new taijutsu style. You're still no match for an elite like me, said Sasuke as he pointed a finger to himself to accentuate what he said. Then the match began. Sasuke quickly dashed forward to land a kick to Naruto's chest, but he was clumsily dodged as Naruto turned to the side. At first, Naruto found that he was barely after to dodge Sasuke's expert strikes, but he soon got used to his stance and began dodging each of Sasuke's attacks nimbly. Sasuke gritted his teeth in frustration as he found himself unable to land a single hit. Most of the fangirls still cheered him on though. "Come on and hit me, coward," shouted Sasuke as he lunged forward to deliver a punch. His mistake. As soon as he said those words, he found a fist in his stomach as Naruto glided around his own fist to deliver the blow. He coughed loudly, sending spittle onto the floor. Time seemed to freeze for a moment until Naruto landed another hit, this time the side of his face with his leg, sending him sprawling on the ground. He didn't get up. "How does that feel?" said Naruto with a smirk. "Good job, Kit," congratulated Yoko. "You showed that self-righteous Uchiha who's boss." "Thank you, Yoko-chan." Naruto took a moment to glance at the people around him. Everyone was shocked. They just watched Naruto, the dead last, demolish Sasuke, the prodigy. The fangirls had their mouths gaped open in shock and all the boys had their eyes wide with surprise. Even the instructors were surprised. Naruto had to stifle a chuckle as he saw the face Mizuki had. He quickly retook his place by the wall. More matches went on by Naruto didn't care to watch. He was just confused about how he had learned a taijutsu style with no prior training. "Yoko-chan, how did I win that fight?" asked Naruto. "I did tell you I had tweaked your instincts. I have basically implanted all my knowledge on the taijutsu style, Kashikoi Fakususutairu, and my vast knowledge of jutsu into your mind," was Yoko's response. "Alright," said Naruto, "but I want a warning next time." "No promises," said Yoko slyly. The sound of someone hitting the floor filled the dojo, forcing Naruto out of deep thought. The final match was done. Finally, he was getting bored. "Alright, that's enough for taijutsu. Class is over," shouted Iruka, who was nearly ran over when all the kids flooded out of the small dojo. "Let's start your training, Kit. Let's head to the training grounds," instructed Yoko, to which Naruto nodded before walking out of the dojo. Training grounds. Birds chirped melodiously in the sky as Naruto made his way through the training grounds. The fresh air was a welcome change compared to the sweat-infused smell the dojo had. "So, where do I train?" he asked. "Find somewhere that provides good cover while having enough space to perform powerful ninjutsu," instructed Yoko, as Naruto continued wandering around. "Like here?" asked Naruto as he stood in front of a fenced-off forest. The trees were huge, towering over all the other trees he had ever seen. The trees provided nice shade, but it also gave an ominous vibe as they covered the ground in shadow. Naruto could swear he saw multiple eyes watching him within the darkness. "Training ground 44, read Yoko, I like it." "Alright," replied Naruto as he jumped over the fence and made his way into the shadows of the forest. Naruto couldn't hide the smile on his face as he gracefully dashed through the forest on top of thick branches. This was going to be the place where he trained, and the thought excited him. He could already imagine the level of power he would achieve in the coming days. His thought process was broken as he immediately came to a sudden stop. "What's that noise? It sounds like someone is crying," was Yoko's reply. "Let's go check it out." "Alright," said Naruto with a solemn look on his face. The sound of crying was painfully familiar to him. Memories of being beaten and starved by the orphanage flooded his mind. He could feel his eyes shut tight and his heart beat fast inside of his chest. The memories were overwhelming as he nearly lost his footing on the branches. "Focus, Naruto-kun," said Yoko in an attempt to calm him down, to which Naruto nodded with grit teeth. Naruto increased his pace until he reached a small clearing in the middle of the forest, the source of the crying. Under one of the trees sat a woman. She had her knees hugged close to her chest, and each time she sobbed, she would convulse. Her weeping caused another flood of memories to fill his head. Memories of crying in the corner of the orphanage as the mistress hid him away from all the other children so he couldn't be adopted. Closing the doors on those memories, he redirected his focus to the lady crying under the tree. From what he could see, she had eggplant-colored hair that was styled into a spiky ponytail. She was wearing a tan overcoat, a mesh shirt and surprisingly, a dark orange mini skirt. That was all he could see from his spot on top of a tree branch and he wanted to see more. Go comfort her already, said Yoko. All right, replied Naruto as he jumped off his branch and onto the ground. The moment he landed on the ground, he had to dodge a kunai that ended up grazing him, leaving a thin red line on his cheek. Who are you? What the air you doing here? She yelled questioningly, her tone brash and filled with killer intent despite the tears that continued to flow down her face. I was just wondering why you are crying, lady, said Naruto as he quickly raised both his hands in a pacifying manner. Before he could even blink, he was pinned to a tree with a kunai at his throat. The woman took a moment to sniff loudly before she started talking. I don't know why you're doing here, but I am Mitarashi Anko, Konoha's snake mistress, and I do not cry. She yelled, sending all the small critters around her fleeing for cover. Naruto just glared at her. With their faces so close together, Naruto couldn't help but take in her features. She had a really cute nose and a really nice round face. What surprised him was that when he looked into her eyes, he saw the same sorrow and pain that they held. Her eyes are just like mine, he thought solemnly. They are, was Yoko's quiet response. It's the Kyubbi brat, thought Anko as she felt her forced anger fading. Naruto could see that Anko was thinking the same thing as she looked down and her features softened up. Her forced grimace had to turn to a crestfallen shame as a single tear rolled down her cheek. Taking a moment to sniffle, she brought the kunai down to her side and looked back up at Naruto's face. Look, kid, I'm sorry, she murmured quietly, trying to hold back the second wave of tears. Her eyes widened considerably as she felt Naruto's hand reach out to gently caress her cheek. As much as she wanted to slap Naruto across the face for touching her, her body couldn't help but react to the slightest act of affection. Anko opened her mouth to speak but was hushed as Naruto placed her thumb on her lip. Don't worry, Anko-chan, started Naruto, you're not alone anymore. Anko's cheeks turned a light shade of pink at the chan suffix that Naruto added to her name. It was like a heavy weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Just knowing that there was someone else who had suffered through what she had was extraordinary to her. She could feel her heart pound in her chest as she listened to Naruto's soft, comforting words. Do you mind telling me why you were crying? Asked Naruto, earning him a slow nod from Anko. I got tired of all the names they call me, she started, it gets to you after a while, you know. Yes, Anko-chan, I know, replied Naruto with a warm smile. Hey, you know, you never introduced yourself, said Anko quietly as her cheeks once again flushed red. Uzumaki Naruto, at your service, my lady, replied Naruto as his eyes flashed red for less than a second, too fast for Anko to notice, causing her blush to darken. He's only 12 but he speaks like a man with decades more experience, thought Anko, I like it. Naruto-kun, I'm not usually like this, began Anko, so don't tell anyone about it, alright? My lips are sealed, replied Naruto sincerely. But since I am acting this way, started Anko shyly, do you mind if I what? Kiss me, murmured Anko as her cheeks turned a light shade of pink. Go for it, cheered Yoko from behind her cage as she watched the scene in front of her like a Korean TV drama. No problem, said Naruto softly as he slowly leaned forward to press his lips to her own. He could feel her hot breath again him just before their lips sealed together. It was a soft kiss, lasting only a second before Naruto pulled back. Anko was surprised at how soft his lips were, softer than all the other guys she had ever kissed before. It wasn't enough though, the kiss only made the raging fire inside her core get hotter. A few seconds after Naruto pulled back, she went in for seconds. Naruto was able to place both hands on her cheeks as he tilted her head to the side so that he could deepen the kiss. Anko shuddered in pleasure as she felt Naruto lick her lips to ask for entrance, before exploring the inside of her mouth with his tongue. This kid is just full of surprises, she thought to herself before her mind went fuzzy. Naruto-kun, panted Anko as they pulled apart, where did you learn to kiss like that? I don't know, Anko-chan, replied Naruto, I guess it was instinct. Well, I wonder what your instincts tell you when I do this, said Anko with a grin as she tossed off her coat and pulled up the bottom of her mesh shirt to reveal her glorious 78 CS, held up by a simple black bra. A shudder ran through Anko's body as she felt Naruto's hand softly grope at her s. He would rub them and squeeze them in just the right way and it felt amazing. Even through the bra, she could feel everything Naruto was doing to her, and before long, her nipples had hardened considerably, poking out a big through the bra. Getting a bit aroused, aren't you, Anko-chan? Asked Naruto teasingly as he squeezed both her nipples, eliciting a quiet squeak from Anko. I would like it more without the bra, wouldn't you agree? Asked Naruto, earning him a nod from Anko. Hold on, let me take it off, replied Anko, to which Naruto stopped his fondling to allow her room to take off her bra. Anko sighed pleasurably as she felt the release that came with taking off one's bra. She sighed again in pleasure as she felt Naruto run his hands up the sides of her waist to cup her s. Her back arched slightly as she felt Naruto engulf one of her nipples into his mouth, swirling his tongue around it, whilst he played with the other nipple with his fingers. Oh, don't stop, Naruto-kun, moaned Anko as she wrapped her arms around Naruto, burying his face into her chest. Naruto-kun, see coming, Anko wailed as she felt hot fluid stain her panties. Her grip around Naruto loosened as she tried to calm her breathing. No one has ever gave me an orgasm just by playing with my s, panted Anko as she took a deep breath. Take off your skirt, Anko-chan, I plan on giving you a lot more than just one, winked Naruto, causing Anko's cheeks to go red. Alright, Naruto-kun, replied Anko as she gingerly pulled down her orange skirt, revealing her drenched black panties. You smell really good, Anko-chan, said Naruto sultrily as he took in Anko's amazing scent. His need was primal, but his selfless personality demanded he please her first before himself. Naruto savored the moment as he pulled down Anko's panties, revealing a cute, shaven, pink slit. He couldn't help but smirk at how wet she was. The smell seemed to grow in intensity as he inched his face closer to her honey pot. Look at how wet you are, Anko-chan, began Naruto, naughty girl. It's only because you're so good, blushed Anko, suddenly shuddering as she felt Naruto's hot breath on her slit. Itadakimasu, said Naruto jokingly as he took an experimental lick, making Anko shiver in delight. A lustful moan escaped Anko's lips as Naruto ran his tongue up and down her aching. He teased her by allowing his tongue to slightly enter her before pulling out to give a quick lick to her. The sensations made her go crazy. She found herself digging her fingers into the grass as she felt her mind go fuzzy with pleasure. She squealed in delight as she felt Naruto gently press in a finger, whilst he continued to play with her. The pleasure proved too strong as her orgasm hit her like a truck. See coming, moaned Anko as she arched her back in bliss. Her mind went blank and she swore she saw stars as her hot nectar splashed all over Naruto's face. You taste so good, Anko-chan, said Naruto as he licked his lips with a foxy grin. Here, you can have a taste, said Naruto as he crawled forward to place a deep kiss to Anko's lips. Tasting herself on his lips made her so hot, not that she was in the state to tell him. Kami, he's amazing, she thought as she calmed down from her high. Here, let me return the favor, Naruto-kun, she said sultrily as she pushed Naruto backwards so that his back was against the tree. Her eyes widened as she saw the large bulge in his pants. Just how big is he? she thought to herself as she licked her lips. Just like how Naruto had savored the moment he pulled down her panties, she did the same and slowly peeled off Naruto's pants. She was nearly slapped in the face by his as she pulled it out. She couldn't stop herself from wrapping her hand around it, causing Naruto to shudder. Holy shit. It's at least 9 inches. I can barely wrap my fingers around it, thought Anko as she positioned her mouth closer to the head of his length. Naruto couldn't help but buck his hips as he felt Anko's hot breath on his member, earning him a sultry smirk from Anko. Excited, are we? Asked Anko lustfully as she continued to tease Naruto with her breath. Naruto shuddered as he felt Anko run her tongue up from the base to the tip before taking in the entire head into her mouth. He let out a moan as Anko expertly swirled her tongue around the head before taking him in as deep as she could, all the while fondling his balls with her hand. The sensations were all new to Naruto and he surprised himself at how long he was lasting against her incredible oral skills. Why, you're amazing, Anko-chan, groaned Naruto, earning him a muffled moan of approval from Anko as she continued bobbing her head on his. Naruto ran his hand through Anko's soft hair in approval as she took him in a little bit more until he hit the back of her throat. His breathing became more ragged as she continued pleasuring him with her mouth. I'm going to come, Anko-chan, grunted Naruto as he subconsciously bucked his hips. She moaned happily as she felt his throb inside her mouth before erupting, sending wave after wave of cum down her throat. She kept him inside her mouth as she greedily drank down his seed. So much, moaned Anko as she finally pulled off his. I still got more, said Naruto with a foxy grin. Anko's eyes sort of bugged out as she saw that Naruto's was still rock hard. She couldn't help but match Naruto's foxy grin with her own as she planted a deep kiss on his lips, whilst using her hand to position his at her wet entrance. I wonder if he'll fit, she thought, biting her lip as she slowly sank down, taking in his large member. They both let out a moan as she took him all the way in. Anko shuddered in delight as she felt wonderfully full. Naruto almost bucked his hips as his member was engulfed in a velvet vice. They both took a moment to get used to this amazing feeling before Anko slowly raised her hips just to sink back down. You feeling amazing, Anko-chan, groaned Naruto as he felt Anko set a nice rhythm to their love-making. So do you, stud, Anko moaned out as she felt Naruto buck her hips to match her. Kami, you're so thick. Anko's moans soon filled their part of the forest as she bounced on his. Her eyes glazed over with lust as Naruto used his hands to massage her hips and play with her s. Anko wrapped her arms around Naruto's neck as she rode him with everything she had. She moaned loudly as she felt Naruto's grip on her s tighten as he engulfed one of her nipples into his mouth. You're so tight, groaned Naruto before switching over to her other nipple. Anko moaned happily at the compliment. Naruto-kun, it's so good, she cried out in pleasure. With her mind clouded in pleasure, Naruto quickly used this to his advantage and pushed her forward so that he was on top. He immediately began pumping into her with his all, earning his ears loud, unrestrained moans. In this position, he was able to take in Anko's sweaty, beautiful body. More, Anko moaned out over and over again as she became desperate for Naruto's touch. She was so sensitive now that every time Naruto even barely touched her, it would send a shiver of delight through her body. She dug her fingers into the dirt as she felt her orgasm build up. I'm gonna come, Naruto-kun, wailed Anko as she climaxed on Naruto's. Naruto let out a grunt as he felt Anko's velvet walls tighten around him, before bursting inside Anko's. Thick waves of his seed filled her womb, causing Anko to arch her back as her mind went blank. She had never been this ally satisfied in her life. A shudder ran through her spine as she felt Naruto pull his out of her. They laid there, panting on the soft grass for a few moments before Anko decided to break the silence. Why, you're amazing, Naruto-kun, she puffed out with a very satisfied smile on her face. You too, Anko-chan, replied Naruto as he rolled over to his side to plant soft kisses on her cheek and neck. Anko took a moment to glance down and what she saw shocked her. He was still hard. How are you still hard, Naruto-kun? She asked breathlessly. It's because you're so beautiful, Anko-chan, replied Naruto, causing Anko's cheeks to glow red. Or me, murmured Yoko quietly. Hey, Naruto-kun, do you want to get something to eat? Began Anko, all that has made me hungry. Sure, Anko-chan. A few moments later, after Anko had recovered enough to put on her clothes, they made their way out of the forest. They both had a great time racing each other back to Konoha, and Anko was genuinely surprised that Naruto could keep up with her, even passing her at times. The kid was still in the academy for Kami's sake. Unbeknownst to her, during their tiny journey back, Naruto was having a conversation all by himself. That was quite a show you put on, Kit, flirted Yoko with a sultry smirk on her face. I'm glad you enjoyed, Yoko-chan, replied Naruto with vigor. So do you like the Kekkei Genkei I gave you? Asked Yoko. It's really useful, replied Naruto. You know, you can always increase the intensity on it, began Yoko. The more Yuki you channel into your eye, the stronger your control over one's mind. When you used it on Anko over there, you simply sent her a subtle thought that fueled her desire. I don't think I am willing to use it on Anko, started Naruto. She does not deserve to be controlled. She deserves to be with me of her own free will. I'll just occasionally send in some of my thoughts so that she remains loyal, said Naruto, to which Yoko nodded in understanding. Could you pick up the pace? I'm hungry, said Yoko after a moment of silence, to which Naruto nodded. Anko's eyes widened considerably as she saw Naruto's speed pick up to a high Chunin level, making her pick up her own pace to catch up. At their speed, they quickly made their way out of the training grounds and into Konoha's commercial district. Konoha's commercial district. So which restaurant are we going to, Anko-chan? Asked Naruto as he followed the excited Anko. You'll see, she replied, before she jumped down to land in front of a rather shanty-looking bar. Naruto couldn't help but quirk an eyebrow. What? Began Anko. It has the best dango in town. Well, alright, was Naruto's response. As they entered the bar, Naruto took a moment to look at the plate that held the restaurant's name. Asari, thought Naruto to himself. Sounds fancy, replied Yoko. The moment they both stepped foot inside the restaurant, a drunk villager holding a quarter-full bottle of beer seemed to stumble out of nowhere. He looked at them for a few seconds before breaking out into a cruel laugh. It looks like the snake whore found herself the demon brat. He howled loudly, not like anyone else would low. He was rudely interrupted as he felt the hatred-filled gaze that came from Naruto. He could swear he saw his eyes turn red before he lost control of his arms. He ended up smashing his bottle of booze over his head, embedding shards of dark glass into his scalp. His response was immediate and he began screaming pain, before running out of the bar, screaming nonsense about demons and mind control. No one took notice to his drunk babbling. TCH. Serves him right, said Naruto with a sneer. How did you do that, Naruto-kun? Asked Anko. Let's find a seat first, Anko-chan, started Naruto. I don't want anyone else to hear this. Alright, Naruto-kun, I trust you, replied Anko. They were quickly seated as most of the waiters were too scared of what had happened earlier to disrespect the demon. The waiters were quick and prompt, afraid of being near Naruto too much in case what had happened earlier to their patron would happen to themselves. Within record time, Anko found herself seated, order taken and plate of dango placed in front of her. So, Naruto-kun, do you mind telling me now? Asked Anko as she took in an entire dumpling in one bite. Be honest, Kit, began Yoko, she deserves the truth. I'm going to tell you something important, started Naruto, you cannot tell this to anyone else unless I say so. Alright, replied Anko suspiciously. You know that I'm the Jinchuriki of the 9 tails, right? asked Naruto. Shit. He knows, thought Anko as she nodded in response. Well, she has taken a liking to me and has decided to give me a Kekkei Genkai, said Naruto. Wait, the Kyubbi is a woman? Asked Anko, to which Naruto nodded. So, what kind of Kekkei Genkai? She calls it the Akuma Fakasui. It allows me to read emotions, enter people's mindscapes and manipulate them, answered Naruto. Suddenly he felt the killer intent around him thicken. Did you happen to use your Kekkei Genkai on me? Asked Anko coldly as she held her empty stick of dango threateningly. Yes, began Naruto, but I had a good reason. Start talking, said Anko in her intense interrogation tone as she pointed the dumpling stick at Naruto. You looked so sad and when I looked into your eyes I knew we are the same, started Naruto, so I thought I could fill that void that we both had. Anko couldn't stop herself as she dropped her dumpling skewer back onto the plate. She glanced up at Naruto for a second before slowly nodding. She shuddered as she felt Naruto caress her cheek and once more, she felt the warm feeling that she had earlier when he had done this simple affectionate act. She found herself unable to disagree with his reasoning. He had already grown on her too much in the short time they knew each other. I love you, Anko-chan, stated Naruto as he leaned forward to place a chaste kiss on her lips. I love you too, Naruto-kun, she said quietly. Anko-chan, there's something I need to ask you, said Naruto as he took Anko's hand with his own. What is it, Naruto-kun? She asked. Do you like Konoha? Asked Naruto, please be honest. No. Everyone sees me as Orochimaru's whore besides a few close friends, replied Anko. Why are you asking me this? Because I plan on destroying Konoha, stated Naruto, earning him a small gasp from Anko. So, you want me to join you? Asked Anko quietly. Yes, replied Naruto. Alright, I'll join you, was Anko's sudden reply, surprising Naruto. This village has treated people like us wrong for long enough, so I'd jump at the chance to get some payback, began Anko. I just want you to spare a few people. Who do you want me to spare? Asked Naruto. If they're shinobi, I can recruit them to our cause. Kurenai Yuhi, Yugao Azuki, and Hana Inazaka, replied Anko before eating the last piece of dango. Anything for you, Anko-chan, began Naruto, you are one of my precious people after all. Thanks, Naruto-kun, replied Anko as her cheeks glowed a light pink. They spent the next few moments getting to know each other. Naruto learned of her involvement in Konoha's torture and interrogation division and she learned about Naruto's relationship to the Hokage. Before they knew it, the restaurant was closing. Naruto quickly volunteered to pay for the bill before they headed out. Let me walk you home, Anko-chan, said Naruto as he took Anko's hand. Sure, Naruto-kun, replied Anko as she led him to her home in the residential district. Right outside Anko's apartment, somewhere in the residential district. Well, good night Anko-chan, said Naruto as they stood in front of Anko's apartment complex. Good night, Naruto-kun. I had a great time today, she replied. With that said, Naruto turned around to begin his walk home. He was stopped when he felt Anko's hand on her shoulder. What is it, Anko-chan? Asked Naruto. Do you mind if you stay with me tonight? Asked Anko. It gets cold here at night and my bed is big enough for two. You make me so proud. Not even 18 and you're already being invited into a girl's house, Yoko said sarcastically. No problem, Anko-chan, replied Naruto as he leaned forward to plant a light kiss on Anko's cheek. No problem. Anko and Naruto were sleeping peacefully in Anko's queen-sized bed. A simple pleasure that Anko's apartment had was that she had blinds on her windows that blocked the sunlight from ruining the couple's beauty sleep. Naruto was dressed in only his boxers while Anko went au natural. Anko had both her arms and legs wrapped around Naruto, her soft S pressing into his back. To Naruto, it was the perfect way to wake up. Except, that was not how they woke up. Instead, Their peaceful slumber wasn't interrupted when they both heard a loud knock at the door. Anko nearly crushed Naruto as she tried burying her face into his neck, to escape the noise. Groaning loudly, Naruto, being the only clothed individual, inched out of his girlfriend's insane grip and walked towards the door. Who the hell would visit someone this early in the morning? Grumbled Yoko as she too was woken up from her sleep. I don't know, replied Naruto as he wrapped his hand around the doorknob. Let's find out. Make sure you kill them in the name of the Kyubbi, yawned Yoko, to which Naruto sighed. Naruto quickly opened the door, to find that an Anbu courier waiting patiently outside. Naruto gave him a nod in greeting. What is it? Asked Naruto as he rubbed his eyes to get rid of the rheum that had accumulated overnight. Lord Hokage demands your presence. Put on some clothes and come with me, the Anbu courier replied, to which Naruto sighed. Wonder what Ji-san wants now, asked Naruto. Must have to do something with you mating with someone twice your age, replied Yoko sarcastically, to which Naruto shook his head. Not one to disappoint his grandfather, Naruto quickly walked back to Anko and gave her a goodbye kiss on the forehead before putting on the clothes he had on the last day. He gave the Anbu a nod before they departed. Hokage's office. Hokage-sama, I have brought Naruto, said the courier as Naruto stood behind him. Sarutobi nodded, before sending the Anbu away. He had a warm smile for Naruto. So, Naruto-kun, how have you been? Asked Sarutobi as he leaned forward and rested his elbows on the desk. I'm doing rather well. How about you? Replied Naruto, to which Sarutobi just sighed as he looked at the tall stacks of paperwork beside him. I've seen better days, said Sarutobi as he took another glance at the huge mountain of legal documents. When he returned his gaze to Naruto, his face turned from casual to serious. Naruto-kun, do you know why I have called you here? Asked Sarutobi, to which Naruto shook his head, no. Well, Naruto-kun, I have called you here because I heard about your taijutsu match yesterday, he said. Naruto couldn't say that he was surprised. It's not every day that the supposed dead last took down the prodigy. News spreads fast around a ninja village, so it was bound to reach the Hokage. Naruto had to hold back a growl as he heard the Hokage tell him that most of the villagers thought he had cheated by poisoning the Uchiha beforehand or using hidden ninjutsu. I didn't cheat, Ji-san, started Naruto, I beat him fair and square. I just want to know where you got the skills to beat the student of the year, replied Sarutobi. I have just recently took my training up a notch, said Naruto, his eyes glowing faintly red for a moment before dissipating back to his bright, blue eyes. Not that Sarutobi noticed. Okay, Naruto-kun, there is one more thing I have to say, replied Sarutobi. What is it? Asked Naruto with a quirked eyebrow. Now I know you're a little young to be doing certain things, started Sarutobi awkwardly, but just be careful next time. What do you mean? Wondered Naruto. What I mean is that I know you've been doing things that only adults should be doing, said Sarutobi slowly, trying to keep his composure. Huh? Asked Naruto innocently. Quote exclamation mark. I am talking about, said Sarutobi as he succumbed to just saying it bluntly. Is that all? Replied Naruto as he quirked an eyebrow, shocking Sarutobi. I just need to know if you're taking the proper precautions, said Sarutobi, like the contraceptive no jutsu. Naruto shook his head, no. Just start using it from now on. You are too young to hold the responsibility of a father, sighed Sarutobi, to which Naruto nodded. Don't worry, Naruto-kun. I am glad that you found someone, started Sarutobi, even if they are twice your age. So, is that all? Asked Naruto. Yes, Naruto-kun. That is all. Take care, replied Sarutobi, to which Naruto nodded. See ya, Ji-san, said Naruto. With that said, Naruto quickly stepped out of the office and walked down the long stairs to the exit. Once he was outside, he took a deep breath, taking in the crisp, cold morning air. Don't you even dare use that contraceptive jutsu, started Yoko. Any woman should be lucky to receive your seed. Plus, I want lots of babies, quickly added Yoko with a blush. Having kids would be nice, was Naruto's reply before he dashed off quickly so that he could grab a quick shower at Anko's apartment. Academy grounds. Naruto sat quietly on the tree swing as he waited out the last few minutes before class. Taking a quick shower at Anko's apartment took longer than he thought it would. A lot longer. The moment he had opened the door, he was immediately dragged back to the bedroom by Anko, who nearly smothered him with her chest. It took a lot of bickering, plus some apology kisses before she let him go. He mentally laughed at the face Anko made when she admitted defeat to their kissing fight. He would never forget her pout. You really like that Anko girl, huh? Suddenly asked Yoko. Are you jealous? Replied Naruto. No, was Yoko's response, as long as you put my first, I won't be jealous. Don't worry, Yoko-chan. You'll always be my queen, said Naruto, to which Yoko blushed madly. Not that she would ever tell him. She still had pride after all. Good, replied Yoko. I don't even know why the academy has a fourth year, started Yoko. You learn all the essentials in the first 3 years, and then you learn about useless history in the fourth. It's the only way for me to get placed into a team, was Naruto's response. When you're bored, I'm bored. Hopefully the final exams come quickly, sighed Yoko. Soon after Yoko finished her sentence, the first bell rang, notifying all the students that they were to find their classroom. The moment he walked into class, everyone set their eyes on him. Most of them were either jealous or disgusted, but Naruto could make out a few looks of respect in the crowd. He took a glance at Sasuke, who was in his usual seat. Sasuke had a rather large bruise on his cheek, that seemed to have been poorly concealed by makeup. Never seen a man wear makeup before, quirked Naruto. I'm not sure that Uchiha is a man, was Yoko's response. Serves him right for looking down at me, snickered Naruto. When the time comes, I want that Uchiha's suffering to last the longest, said Yoko sadistically. Why do you hate the Uchiha? Asked Naruto. I'll tell you when you get older, was Yoko's reply, to which Naruto just nodded. Naruto's focus returned to Iruka at the front. Good morning, class, began Iruka. Today is the day of your final exam. Called it, cheered Yoko, to which Naruto just rolled his eyes. You know what I don't understand? Started Yoko. Why would they send in genin that know only 3 basic jutsu? I do not know, Yoko-chan, was Naruto's reply. I doubt that 30% of the people in here will survive the first 2 years as ninja, scoffed Yoko, to which Naruto couldn't help but grin sadistically. Alright, we will begin the exam, said Iruka as he got his clipboard. Can I please get Uzumaki Naruto to the front? Shit, I have terrible chakra control, said Naruto. Trust your instincts, was Yoko's reply. You have 10 lifetimes worth of jutsu at your disposal. Naruto-kun, please do the Bushin no Jutsu, said Iruka, to which Naruto nodded. Taking a deep breath, Naruto quickly molded his hands into the proper hand seals. Ram, snake, and tiger. Kage Bushin no Jutsu, said Naruto as 20 Naruto clones filled up the classroom, shocking everybody. Oh my kami, gasped Iruka as he nearly dropped his clipboard to the floor. Most of the other students had their mouth open in shock as they had just witnessed the supposed dead last create more clones than anyone else had before during an exam. Iruka couldn't help but get curious. Naruto-kun, how did you just perform a B-rank jutsu? Asked Iruka, shocking everyone further, prompting Sasuke to scoff loudly. Not that anyone noticed, of course. I have terrible chakra control, so I asked Ji-san to teach me a solid clone technique that required more chakra, was Naruto's creative reply. It seemed to satisfy Iruka as he nodded. Next, the Kawarimi no Jutsu, said Iruka, to which Naruto nodded. Proceeding with the appropriate hand seals. Tiger, boar, ox, dog, snake. Naruto quickly spoke up. Kawarimi no Jutsu, said Naruto as he quickly substituted with Hinata. The poor girl nearly fainted when she realized what happened. Naruto then substituted back, taking note how red Hinata's face was. She has a crush on you, if you didn't notice, said Yoko. Really? Asked Naruto. Really? You should start using my Kekkei Genkai more often to detect emotions, replied Yoko, to which Naruto mentally nodded. Okay. Next, the Henge no Jutsu, said Iruka. Running through the correct hand seals. Dog, boar, ram. Naruto quickly activated the jutsu. Henge no Jutsu, said Naruto as he transformed into an older version of himself. Iruka could swear he was looking at the Yondaime Hokage with whisker marks before he disappeared with a poof, revealing the same old Naruto in his gray clothing. You pass, Naruto-kun, said Iruka as he gave Naruto a proud smile, to which Naruto returned the smile, before walking back to his seat. I still don't understand why they send children to the slaughterhouse with these basic techniques, scoffed Yoko. Must be the low standards that come with this pitiful village, replied Naruto. It'll make it easier when you destroy this place, said Yoko as her lips stretched into a sadistic grin. I bet it will, my queen, replied Naruto as he himself smiled. The rest of the tests went on just as quickly yet less impressively. Everyone received their headbands and almost everyone was happy. Naruto couldn't say that he was happy, wearing the symbol of the village that he despised. Still, this was a requirement in his plan, so he begrudgingly wrapped the forehead protector around his head and walked out to get something to eat. At the Uchiha compound, a loud angry battle cry erupted from the compound as the last Uchiha demolished a training dummy with a devastating kick. He hopped back to marvel at his strength before clenching his jaw in anger. Not good enough, thought Sasuke as he felt his anger rise. Ever since he was defeated by Naruto, he had stepped up his training. From the moment class ended he would rush to his compound and train, only taking a small break to eat a quick dinner. Even as he moved on the next training dummy, he could hear Naruto's voice, taunting him. You can't beat me, Sasuke, laughed the Naruto in his mind. Shut up, Dobi. I'm an elite, Sasuke thought as he clenched his fist to deliver a blow to the training dummy. You're weak. I am not weak. The Uchiha are worthless. We are not worthless. If you can't beat me, how can you beat Itachi? Shut up, shut up, shut up. You lack hatred, said the new voice in his head. Shut up, Sasuke cried mentally as he snapped the last training dummy in half before collapsing onto the ground. I'll show you Dobi, I'll show everyone that I'm the strongest, swore Sasuke with an exhausted smirk as he lay on the ground, his mind already formulating a plan. Konoha's commercial district. It was a little late for lunch but that didn't matter to Naruto. He was finally out of that boring academy, it was a cause for celebration. A bowl or 12 of Ichiraku's delicious ramen was sure to hit the spot. He could already imagine how tasty their miso broth was and how chewy their noodles were. He could feel himself salivate. Yet, his beautiful thoughts of ramen were interrupted as he had to violently swerve to the side to dodge a kunai. What the hell was that? Mentally shouted Naruto. Watch out, yelled Yoko as Naruto dodged another kunai. Who are you? Asked Naruto, show yourself. From an alleyway, came a shadowy figure with a duck butt haircut. Naruto didn't even need to see his face or hear his voice to know who he is. Those two kunai he had to dodge earlier really got his heart pumping. He could feel the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Dobi, said Sasuke with an elitist smirk on his face. Sasuke, why the hell did you do that? Asked Naruto as he readied himself in his unique taijutsu stance. Give me that jutsu, Dobi, demanded Sasuke, only the elite like me deserve to use such a strong jutsu. Naruto adopted a comical thinking stance before giving Sasuke a foxy grin, nah. Sasuke literally fumed. How dare this lowlife nobody speak to him this way? He was an Uchiha. Fight me, Dobi, started Sasuke, prove to everyone that I am better than you. With that said, Sasuke quickly pulled out a kunai and dashed forward. He swung his kunai skillfully, for a genin, but he was easily dodged by the instinct-driven Naruto. With each strike that he missed, Sasuke found himself getting angrier. He grit his teeth as he put all his strength into a lunge in the hopes of impaling Naruto on his kunai. Die! Screamed Sasuke as his kunai dug deep into Naruto. He smirked in superiority as he saw Naruto's pained expression. Sasuke's victory ended prematurely as what he thought was Naruto exploded into a cloud of gas, clouding his vision. The next thing he knew, he was axe-kicked into the ground. The blow came without warning as it smashed into the back of his head, sending him face first into the dirt. When the dust cleared, Naruto could be seen standing beside the fallen Sasuke. Sweet kick, Kit, cheered Yoko as she reveled in her hate for Uchihas. Why should I fight you? Started Naruto, there's no point to this. Naruto had to dodge once more as Sasuke launched a kick up into his face. Sasuke quickly grabbed the kunai on the ground before curving his body so that he could stab the side of Naruto. Naruto barely moved as he easily grabbed Sasuke's wrist and held it up into his back, forcing him to drop the kunai. Had enough, said Naruto with an annoyed expression on his face, to which Sasuke just scoffed. Sasuke wasn't done as he quickly headbutted Naruto, allowing him to slip through his hold. Sasuke then immediately launched a spinning kick that slammed into Naruto, throwing him into the wall. Naruto would have hit the wall if he didn't immediately explode into a cloud of smoke. That jutsu should be mine, thought Sasuke angrily as he kept alert in case Naruto struck again. It seemed he wasn't alert enough as he was suddenly side-kicked in the stomach, sending him sprawling onto the ground. He balled his fist and hit the ground in anger as he heard Naruto walk up to him. You do realize what you've done, don't you? Asked Naruto as he crossed his arms. Why don't you tell me, Dobi? Sneered Sasuke. You just attacked a fellow leaf shinobi, replied Naruto. Ha, like it'll matter. The council would never listen to a clan-less loser like you, smirked Sasuke. People like you never learn, sighed Naruto, before quickly dashing forward and delivering a devastating kick into the side of Sasuke's head, knocking him out. What an idiot, said Yoko. Naruto couldn't help but agree. For a supposed genius, he sure isn't bright, replied Naruto, before dusting his clothes off and making his way to Ichiraku's ramen restaurant. Ichiraku's ramen restaurant. Naruto had continued his brisk walk through the commercial district as he found himself in front of Ichiraku's ramen restaurant. He didn't even need to see where he was going as muscle memory had directed him to it. He could feel himself salivate as the wonderfully nostalgic scent of ramen wafted into his nose. Luckily for him, there was no one else eating in the restaurant, so he had the entire place to himself. Hey, Naruto-kun, said Ayame cheerfully as Naruto took his seat. New look. Hi, Ayame-chan, and yes, replied Naruto as he placed his elbows onto the wooden counter. Where's Chuki-san? Asked Naruto. Well, Tu-san has been under the weather lately, so I was left with the task of manning the restaurant by myself today, replied Ayame, to which Naruto nodded in understanding. I'll be closing the restaurant early today so that I can take care of him, she quickly added. So what can I get for you? She asked. As many bowls of miso ramen as you can make, he replied with a foxy grin. You know, Kit, thanks to you, I have a ramen addiction, sighed Yoko. Well, that means we can both enjoy this meal, was Naruto's reply. The reason you were so short before was because you never had the correct nutrients, said Yoko. At least promise me that you'll start eating things other than ramen. Oh, alright, sighed Naruto, before focusing on Ayame. Naruto watched as Ayame turned raw ingredients into his meal. Large stalks of green onion were diced with an expert's hand, along with bamboo shoots and thick slices of char siu pork. This was a very familiar scene to Naruto, but he couldn't help but feel something was a bit different. He found that his gaze fell on her backside a lot more than usual and that he would notice whenever her S would jiggle every time she turned sharply to check on the cooking ingredients. Before he knew it, his pants suddenly felt a lot tighter. He's looking at me, thought Ayame as she bit her lip. Here you go, Naruto-kun, said Ayame with a blush as she placed the first bowl of ramen in front of him. I think she caught you staring, started Yoko, and I think she likes the attention. All these urges are a bit overwhelming, was Naruto's reply. I think you have a crush on her, teased Yoko. She's always treated me nice, she has a place in my heart, replied Naruto as he said a quick, itadakimasu, before chowing down. I think that she also has a crush on you, said Yoko. Really? Asked Naruto. Yes, replied Yoko. Why do you think that? Asked Naruto. Just look at her, started Yoko. Every time she catches you looking at her, her cheeks get red and she bites her lip. If she didn't like you, she would slap you and call you a pervert. Oh, I always thought she treated everyone like this. For the future destroyer of Konoha, you can get a bit dense, teased Yoko, earning her a short sigh from Naruto. Compliment her. You look really pretty today, Ayame-chan, complimented Naruto, earning him a cute blush from Ayame. Thanks, Naruto-kun, replied Ayame, her blush intensifying as she realized she had stuttered. If you play this right, began Yoko, you may add another woman to your harem. Ayame-chan is not just another woman, was Naruto's reply, she's important to me. She'll join out of her own volition. Ayame-chan, have I ever told you how beautiful you are? Said Naruto with a foxy grin, causing Ayame's face to go red. Thanks, she replied bashfully. Why am I getting flustered? He's 5 years younger than me. It's just a compliment. More bowls of ramen were eaten, and between bites, Naruto would casually drop compliments on Ayame. He would compliment her personality, her skills and her body until he had whittled down her resistance. Ayame could feel her heart warm at his words, it made her feel special. Naruto's late lunch had turned into dinner as he had ate a total of 23 bowls of ramen. Gama-chan felt very empty. The sun was setting and it was getting dark outside. It seemed words had a very strong effect on Ayame because Naruto could smell hints of arousal rolling off of her in small waves. Delicious always, Ayame-chan, complimented Naruto. Thanks, she replied. Taking a moment to turn on his Kekkei Genkei, he took a glance at Ayame's emotions. He wasn't that surprised to learn that she was lonely. Ayame was a girl who spent most of her time in a restaurant and taking care of her father when she should have been hanging out with her friends. He decided that she needed a break. Hey, Ayame-chan, started Naruto slowly, are you lonely? No, stuttered Ayame, why do you ask? Be honest with me Ayame, replied Naruto, to which Ayame nodded. Yes, I don't get much time for myself when I have so many responsibilities, said Ayame as she untied her bandana. Why don't you take a short break? We can talk for a while, said Naruto. Alright, I'm sure he wouldn't mind if I was a little bit late, she replied after a moment of thought. Ayame promptly walked out the back of the restaurant to sit on the stool next to Naruto. From the close distance that each stool had between each other, she could make out the subtle scent that was Naruto. It was very pleasant, and she just wanted to bury her nose in it, but she controlled herself. How was your day, Ayame-chan? Asked Naruto. It was tiring, but I'm glad that you came by, replied Ayame, earning her a grin from Naruto. I should come here every day then, said Naruto warmly. It's fine, Naruto-kun, was Ayame's response. You know you're special to me right? Asked Naruto sincerely, earning him a small blush from the sweet ramen cook. He doesn't mean it that way. He's 5 years younger than me, she repeated in her head before responding with a nod. But what if he does mean it that way? It wouldn't hurt to ask. Hey, Naruto-kun, what am I to you? She asked. Naruto had to think for a moment before responding. Ayame-chan. You are one of my most precious people. You were the girl in the beginning that helped me out when everyone else shunned me. If I didn't have you, my world would be shattered. I love you, Ayame-chan, replied Naruto sincerely, to which Ayame immediately brightened up. I've fallen for a 12-year-old. This it. I'm going to be a molester, thought Ayame with a blush. That's what I needed to hear, she said quietly before leaning forward to plant her lips on Naruto's. The next thing that happened was not something she expected. The moment their lips connected, Naruto reacted immediately and cupped both of her cheeks softly with his hands. He expertly tilted her head slightly to the side so that he could deepen the kiss. She couldn't contain herself as she quickly melted into the kiss. She moaned appreciatively as she felt Naruto's tongue explore the inside of her mouth. They only separated when their need for oxygen was stronger than their need to continue their kiss. "Oh Kami, you're an amazing kisser," gasped Ayame breathlessly. "Where did you learn to kiss that way?" "A secret, Ayame-chan," replied Naruto with a grin. "I just need you to know that I already have a girlfriend, and she's willing to share," explained Naruto, giving Ayame a moment to think. "It's okay Naruto-kun. I'm willing to share. Only because it's you," she admitted quickly, her face red. Because, Naruto-kun," added Ayame, "I think I love you." "Well, I know I love you," replied Naruto, earning him a blush from Ayame. Kami, his words are magical. When did he learn to talk so suave? "I think I'm ready, Naruto-kun," she said shyly, "please take me." "I'll be gentle," he replied sultrily, earning him a shudder from the ramen cook. With that said, he leaned forward to plant one more kiss on Ayame's sweet lips, whilst he untied the sash that kept on Ayame's cooking uniform. Once the sash had been taken off, her cooking robe slid off easily, revealing her 72 held up by a simple white bra. "You're so beautiful, Ayame-chan," whispered Naruto with a smile. A quiet moan escaped Ayame's lips as she felt Naruto softly caress her s. It was a gentle touch, but it felt so intense to her. Each time his fingers ran over her hardening nipples, she could feel a shiver run through her. Her arousal was growing so quickly that even the faintest of touches were turning her into putty in Naruto's hands. "Do you like that, Ayame-chan?" cooed Naruto softly as he gave her a gentle squeeze. "Why yes," moaned Ayame as her eyes glazed over. "Do you mind letting me take off your bra?" asked Naruto. "Not at all, just let me turn around," replied Ayame, before turning around. Naruto saw that it was a simple design and easily unhooked the bra. It dropped to the floor, revealing her perky s. Scooting up so that he was right behind her, he quickly continued fondling her s whilst he planted soft kisses on her ear and the side of her neck. "Your s are so soft, Ayame-chan," complimented Naruto, making Ayame blush. "How is he so good at this?" thought Ayame as she moaned loudly. Shudders ran through her body as Naruto played with her nipples. Loud moans soon filled the inside of Ichiraku's ramen restaurant as Naruto continued fondling Ayame's s. The sensations were too much to bear for Ayame as she felt her orgasm hit her. "See coming," squealed Ayame as she felt her fluids splash out into her panties. "Feel good," said Naruto sultrily, earning a timid nod from Ayame. "Good. Get on your back," said Naruto. Once Ayame was laying comfortably on her back, Naruto immediately positioned his face between her legs and gave a sniff. With his enhanced senses, the smell was intoxicating. The primal instinct was overpowering, but Naruto promised that he would be gentle. A soft mew escaped Ayame's lips as she felt Naruto pull off her white panties. Her fluids glistened as it slid off the panties and onto her legs. What was revealed between her legs was a shaved, pink slit. "Itadakimasu," Naruto said jokingly before giving her slit a long lick, earning him a shudder from Ayame. "S so good," moaned Ayame as Naruto began swirling his tongue around her honey pot. The sensation was amazing. Ayame could feel everything as Naruto teased her. She could swear he was drawing the Japanese hiragana with his tongue. The idea turned her on immensely. Being a virgin, Ayame was super sensitive, and before she knew it, she was squirting all over Naruto's face. Coming, moaned Ayame as she arched her back, her fluids gushing all over Naruto's open mouth. Naruto slowly got up onto his knees and gave Ayame a lustful look. Seeing Naruto with all of her fluid on his face turned her on to no end. She nearly shuddered when she saw him lick around his mouth to get the stuff he couldn't swallow. "You taste good, Ayame-chan," said Naruto sultrily as he began taking off his pants. The size of Naruto's surprised her. Her jaw went slack as the monster sprung out of his pants. It was so intimidating that Ayame quivered at the sight. The thing was oozing pre-cum as it twitched in anticipation of what was to come. Ayame almost let out a squeal as she felt Naruto's arms wrap around her waist, lifting her up to position himself at her entrance. "He's so thick. He'll split me in half," thought Ayame. "I'll go slow, Ayame-chan," reassured Naruto, earning him a shy nod from Ayame, before he slowly pressed himself in. Naruto let out a groan as he felt Ayame's love canal. It was like silky velvet cast in iron. It gripped onto him so tight, it was amazing. It took all the willpower he had not to ram it into her. "You're so tight, Ayame-chan," complimented Naruto, to which Ayame blushed. "It's only because you're so big," replied Ayame as she let out a long moan. At long last, Naruto was fully sheathed into Ayame. Naruto took a moment to enjoy the view. Ayame was beautiful. Her clear skin glowed as the light bounced off her sheen of sweat. Her long hair was creatively sprawled around her head. Her perky S looked amazing. Naruto couldn't help himself as he leaned forward to cup both of them with his hands. "You can start moving," said Ayame as she braced herself, earning her a nod from Naruto. A sharp breath escaped Ayame as she felt his hard length slowly exit out of her before it was pushed back in. The pain and the pleasure mingled together. It was a sensation she had never felt before. It excited her greatly. It wasn't long before she was quietly moaning his name as he adopted a gentle pace. "You feel amazing, Ayame-chan," said Naruto with a groan as held on to her S for leverage. "Why you too?" replied Ayame as she let out a soft moan. Ayame let out a small yelp as she felt Naruto lift her up and put her onto her knees. She was amazed that someone so young could lift her. Her train of thought was interrupted as she felt him enter her from behind. Oh, this position is way better," thought Ayame as she moaned loudly. The sound of flesh slapping flesh soon bounced off the walls of the small restaurant as Naruto rammed his large length into Ayame's slit. All sense of restraint in Ayame disappeared as she let out loud, pleasurable moans. The sounds mingled together and it was like music to Naruto's ears. He let out a grunt as he felt Ayame's already tight walls tightened around him. "I'm gonna come," wailed Ayame as her eyes nearly rolled back into her head. Naruto continued thrusting inside of her before he let out a grunt before exploding inside of her. She arched her back as wave after wave of cum entered her. She felt so full as her womb was filled with his seed. Nothing could ever compare to what she had just felt. It was that good. She shuddered as she felt him pull out. "I love you, Ayame-chan," cooed Naruto as he softly embraced Ayame, planting a soft kiss on her forehead. "I love you too, Naruto-kun," she replied sincerely as she returned the embrace. As the couple held on to each other, Ayame took a moment to glance at Naruto's manhood. She was surprised to see that he was still as hard as a rock. How was that possible? With her mind clouded by the orgasms Naruto had just given her, the only answer she could come up was younger people, thought Ayame as she promptly dozed off in her lover's arms. Anko's apartment. With Ayame knocked out by his UAL prowess, Naruto had clumsily redressed her before quickly carrying her back to Anko's apartment. One of the good things about Anko's apartment was it was quite large due to the large paychecks Anko would receive as a junin. The bed itself was quite large, so he gently placed Ayame on top of it before covering her with the sheets. "I am so proud," began Yoko, only your second time and you've already made someone black out from pleasure. I'm glad she enjoyed it, replied Naruto. You've now got 2 women in your harem, began Yoko, a step closer to me. How am I going to explain to Anko-chan? Don't worry. Judging from Anko's personality, the more the merrier, replied Yoko. I can't wait until I can have you all to myself. It might take a while. I am only going to make love to women that I love and only if they are willing to have me, replied Naruto as he took a seat around the dinner table. You're a real gentleman, said Yoko, you know that. Yes I do, replied Naruto with a smile. I think it's time I gave you a new Kekkei Genkai, said Yoko. I've already gotten the perfect idea of one, I just need some time to tweak your genetics. Alright, replied Naruto, I'll look forward to it. It was only a few moments after he had placed the sleeping Ayame on the bed before he heard the door open and close. In walked Anko, her coat slung over her shoulder as she walked in with an empty stick of dango between lips. Naruto smiled warmly at her as she walked in. Hey, Naruto-kun, greeted Anko as she leaned forward to kiss Naruto's cheek. Hey, Anko-chan, replied Naruto as he leaned forward to kiss Anko's cheek. Who's the girl on my bed? Asked Anko as she took a glance at the sleeping brunette. One of my precious people, was Naruto's response. You know, Naruto-kun. If you were anyone else, I would have castrated you, said Anko jokingly, sending a shiver down Naruto's spine. But since it's you, I'm willing to share, she began, plus it'd be interesting having a third person. Quote. Or a fourth, she quickly added. Anko gave Naruto a lustful smirk before she leaned forward to give Naruto a deep kiss. Her kiss was returned with equal fervor. Anko pulled back for some air before pushing him off the chair. He landed on his back and Anko was on top of him in an instant. She gave him a playful lick on the lips before leaning forward to whisper naughtily into his ear. Just make sure that you satisfy me before anyone else, whispered Anko sultrily before ripping off her shirt. Naruto gave her a playful smirk before he mustered up strength to lift Anko off of her and put her onto her stomach. She let out a quiet gasp as she found herself with her butt in the air and her ass pressed onto the floor. He leaned forward and whispered sultrily into her ear. Sure, hubby Heim, but I call top. Naruto awoke on Anko's bed as the sunlight began peeking through the windows. There was something off though. Naruto squinted his eyes as he lifted his head to see what was happening. It was a scene that every man dreams about. He had his boxers and there were 2 very beautiful ladies pleasuring him with their mouths. There was Anko swirling her tongue over the head of his and Ayame licking up and down his length. He let out a soft groan as he felt Anko's soft lips work over his sensitive head, whilst Ayame gave him a quiet moan in greeting. Morning. Ladies, said Naruto, earning him muffled moans as greetings. Both Anko and Ayame were and both of them were playing with themselves as they worked his length to the best of their ability. They both looked up at him adoringly as they continued their work with vigor. Naruto leaned forward so that he could run his hands through both of their hair. This only seemed to increase the effort they made as they lovingly pleasured him. This was certainly a unique way to wake up. Coming, grunted Naruto as he bucked his hips into Anko's awaiting mouth. At the very last second, Anko released his member from her mouth. Anko and Ayame quickly positioned their faces near his, before it erupted cum into both of their mouths. The 2 girls seemed to compete with each other over how much they could take in before his stopped releasing seed. Taking a moment to acknowledge the taste, they swallowed. Anko was the first one to speak up. Tasty, moaned Anko as she licked around her mouth to get any she had missed. You were right, it is delicious, agreed Ayame as she licked the seed off her fingers. That was a nice way to wake up, said Naruto as he grinned foxily to the both of them. Just our way of encouraging our stud before he gets his Junin instructor, replied Anko with a smile, to which Ayame nodded in agreement. Academy classroom. Naruto felt amazing as he walked into the classroom. Waking up to a blowjob, having a hot shower and eating a delicious ramen breakfast does that to a man. While he did feel amazing, his face did not show it. His face remained stoic as he opened the door to the classroom. He stood by the doorway to scan the room. There was Sakura and Ino fighting over Sasuke. There was Hinata blushing at his appearance. Some of Sasuke's old fan girls were also blushing, which made Naruto mentally hiss at them. There was also Sasuke, brooding in his seat. Okay, I'm awake. What did I miss? Yawned Yoko. A very pleasurable morning, replied Naruto as he took his eat. How long do you think we're going to have to wait here? Asked Yoko. I don't know, was Naruto's response. So why did you wake up so late? Asked Naruto. I spent almost the entire night working over your genetics. I'll introduce you to your new Kekkei Genkai later, replied Yoko, earning her a mental nod from Naruto. After all the kids had settled, Iruka walked in through the door with a clipboard. It appeared Iruka had been through a rough fight as both his legs and arms had bandages on them and there was also a bandage around his forehead. Wonder what happened to him? Wondered Naruto. No idea, was Yoko's lazy response. All right everyone, congratulations on passing the exam. I will now be telling you, your teams, said Iruka as he looked over his clipboard. Hey, Iruka-sensei, why are you injured? Asked Naruto. Well, Naruto-kun, the life of a ninja is a rough one and one of your own could turn on you at any time. As you may have noticed, Mizuki-sensei is no longer here. Mizuki was a traitor to the village and I was the one who killed him, began Iruka, so may that be a lesson to all of you. Naruto was satisfied with the answer so he nodded at understanding at Iruka. Okay. Team 1. Generic student, generic student, generic student, said Iruka as he looked up at all the students he just called up. After list teams 1 through 6, he went on to Team 7. Team 7 will be Naruto Uzumaki, Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha, said Iruka. The reactions were almost instant. Naruto scoffed quietly to himself at the idea of having to be in a team with that narcissistic elitist. Sakura cheered loudly as she was on the same team as her precious, Sasuke-kun. Sasuke had a very subtle but obvious reaction. His left eye twitched madly as he grit his teeth in anger. This did not go unnoticed. The rest of the teams were quickly called out. Iruka instructed to all the students that they were to wait here for their Junin squad leader. Most of the Junin came by quickly and took their respective teams. An hour had soon passed and the only ones left in the classroom were Naruto, Sakura and Sasuke. Wonder why my Junin instructor is so late, sighed Naruto. Make sure to beat his when you see him, said the very annoyed Yoko. Got it, replied Naruto. A few more minutes passed quietly as no one else spoke up. Naruto simply didn't care to start a conversation. Sasuke continued to brood and Sakura was too scared to talk. Suddenly the sliding door opened, revealing a tall Junin in a mask, with white hair. The Junin had on the respective Konoha Junin attire. Green vest and black sweater with black pants. The first thing that the white-haired Junin said was, "Meet me up on the roof," before he disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Sasuke and Sakura immediately got up and went to the roof, anxious to meet their new squad leader. Naruto just remained calmly at his desk. Just before Sasuke walked out of the classroom, he stopped to glare at Naruto. Dobi. He told us to meet us on the roof, sneered Sasuke. Without saying a word, Naruto simply disappeared in a swirl of red chakra, shocking the Uchiha. Sasuke's reaction was to grit his teeth angrily. That jutsu should be mine. Fumed Sasuke before running out to catch up with Sakura. Rooftop. When Sakura and Sasuke made it onto the roof, they saw Naruto sitting quietly on the ground whilst their Junin instructor leaned against the railing. Sasuke scoffed as he took his seat by Naruto, followed by Sakura. Their Junin instructor took a moment to size them up before he spoke. Let's see, started Kakashi. First off, let me have you guys introduce yourselves. Introduce ourselves? Asked Sakura, What should we say? Your likes, dislikes, your future dreams, hobbies, things like that, was Kakashi's response. Before that, can you please tell us about yourself? Asked Naruto calmly and politely. Me. My name's Hitaki Kakashi, replied Kakashi. I don't feel like telling you guys about my likes or dislikes, continued Kakashi, earning a sound of surprise from Sakura. I've never really thought about my future dream, said Kakashi. As for my hobbies, I have many. In the end, isn't all we know is his name, whispered Sakura with an irritated look. She was ignored by both of her team members. Next is you guys, said Kakashi loudly, regaining Sakura's attention. Let's start off with you, said Kakashi as he pointed at Naruto. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I like ramen. What I dislike are the ignorant villagers. My hobby is training. My future dream is something I have never thought about, said Naruto in a monotone voice, obviously apathetic towards his new instructor. What happened to the cheerful Naruto that I knew of back when I was his Anbu guard? Thought Kakashi before he continued. Okay. Next, he said. I'm Haruno Sakura. What I like, who I like is, giggled Sakura as she took a sideways glance at Sasuke. What a fangirl, thought Naruto with a mental scoff. Agreed, was Yoko's reply. My hobby is, said Sakura before blushing as she took another glance at Sasuke, my future dream is. She let out a high-pitched squeal as her face turned red. Kakashi's visible eye twitched at her, obviously annoyed but holding it together rather well. And, what are your dislikes? Asked Kakashi blankly, hoping to get the pink-haired kunoichi over with. Naruto, said Sakura, her giggly fangirl demeanor turning a 180. Naruto barely reacted, obviously unfazed that someone didn't like him. He just remained nonchalant and kept his focus on Kakashi. No one knew, but on the inside, he was having a nice conversation to escape the boredom that was his current reality. That Sakura is such a fangirl bitch, scoffed Yoko in annoyance, promise me you'll break her. I'd do it just to get rid of her shrieking banshee voice, sighed Naruto, maybe I'll force her to never be able to talk again except for with sign language. Would be nice to have her serving you, was Yoko's response, to which Naruto could not disagree. Yeah, would be. And lastly, said Kakashi, motioning towards Sasuke. My name, said Sasuke, pausing for effect, Uchiha Sasuke. I have lots of dislikes, but no likes in particular, continued on Sasuke, his hands folded in front of his face. And, I don't feel like summing up my ambition is just a dream, but I do have an ambition. The ambition to restore my clan and without fail, kill a certain man. Said Sasuke, earning a blush from Sasuke and a scoff from Naruto. What a hard ass, said Naruto. What's with all the drama? Said Yoko, he needs to get a life. Agreed. Good, said Kakashi, the three of you are very distinctive and interesting. We'll have a mission tomorrow, continued Kakashi. What kind of mission? Asked Sakura curiously. A survival exercise, said Kakashi after a dramatic pause. Why are we doing a survival exercise? Asked Sakura. We've had more than our share of exercises at the academy. Please just shut up, thought Naruto quietly, praying to Kami. This is no simple exercise, replied Kakashi. Then what kind of exercise is it? Asked Sakura, her annoyance showing greatly. Kakashi immediately broke out into a long chuckle, slightly scaring Sakura, even phasing Sasuke lightly, but Naruto remained stoic. What's so funny, sensei? Asked Sakura in an agitated voice. Well, if I tell you, I know you'll get discouraged, replied Kakashi enthusiastically. Of the 27 graduates, only 9 will be recognized as junior ninjas. The remaining 18 will be sent back to the academy. In other words, this exercise is an extremely difficult test with a failure rate of 66% or higher. Kakashi took a moment to take in their facial expressions. Sakura immediately grew disenchanted. Sasuke scoffed and Naruto remained as stoic as ever. See, said Kakashi, you got discouraged. Then what was the graduation test for? Shouted Sakura. Oh, that, replied Kakashi, it was just to select those who have the potential of becoming genin. Well, that's the way it is. I'll be determining whether you pass or fail, continued Kakashi. Bring your complete set of ninja tools. We meet at 5 in the morning. Okay, you're dismissed, said Kakashi dismissively as he waved a backwards goodbye to his team. Oh, and you'd better skip breakfast, added Kakashi. Why? Asked Sakura. Because you'll throw up, was Kakashi's scary reply. With that said, Kakashi quickly shinned off to wherever he went, leaving the three genin behind. Sasuke immediately stood up and began walking away, but not before he could whisper something into Naruto's ear. You'll get what's coming to you for what you did to me yesterday, began Sasuke quietly. Konoha is no place for a dobe like you. Naruto barely reacted except disappearing in a red swirl of chakra, much to Sasuke's annoyance. Sasuke began walking away, grumbling about how he was going to show that dobe once and for all, leaving a very confused Sakura behind. Commercial District. Being the gentleman that he is, Naruto decided that it would be romantic of him to purchase some flowers for his lovely ladies. He immediately arrived in the middle of the commercial district via his Akuma Fakusu Shunshin. Naruto took a moment to take in his surroundings and was surprised to see that the Yamanaka flower shop was right behind him. Lucky day. So, you're getting flowers for your woman? Asked Yoko. Yes, I am. I'll also here to pay a visit to a certain Yamanaka, replied Naruto. Was it that blonde fan girl we saw yesterday? Asked Yoko. Yes, but hopefully by the end of today, she won't be a fangirl anymore, replied Naruto with a grin. The bell on the door to the Yamanaka flower shop jingled cheerfully as Naruto walked into the store. The smell of multiple varieties of flowers immediately hit his nose. With his enhanced sense of smell, he almost choked. Welcome to the Yamanaka flower shop, started Ino cheerfully, only to trail off when she saw who had entered. Oh, it's you, Naruto. I was just looking for some flowers to give to my girlfriends, said Naruto calmly, ignoring Ino's lack of enthusiasm at his sudden appearance. Girlfriends? Asked Ino. Who would go out with you? None of your business, started Naruto. I would like to see your selection of flowers, please. Whatever, follow me, sighed Ino as she got up from her stool. So here we have our amaryllis, our anemone, some azaleas, started Ino, her passion for flowers coming forth with each new flower mentioned. Here we have our bluebells, some camellias, and daisies. We got more in the back if you are interested, added Ino. Do you even know what any of those flowers mean? Asked Yoko. I think there was a flower arrangement course in the academy, replied Naruto. Oh, yes, flower arrangement. You can arrange some flowers on your own grave after you've been killed by an enemy ninja who actually learned useful stuff, was Yoko's sarcastic reply. Ino, may I please have a bouquet of anemones, azaleas, and daisies and another bouquet of red poppies, cacti and freesia? Asked Naruto, having no idea what the flowers looked like but knowing what they symbolized. Really? Well, I'll arrange them for you, said Ino as she went to pick out the specific flowers. Naruto promptly followed Ino as they went into the back of the store. One of the flowers he had asked for were placed in a pot on the bottom shelf. Naruto got a perfect glimpse of her underwear peeking out of her short skirt as she bent down. She's got a tight ass, whistled Yoko, she'd make a nice addition to your harem. Yes, she will, replied Naruto. Naruto could see that Ino had a huge passion for flowers. He could just make out the gleam in her eye as she took the best flowers out of the bunch for his bouquet. When she wasn't acting like a Sasuke fangirl, she had a really nice personality. Ino had just picked out a cute-looking cactus pod when she got back up to see that Naruto was holding a beautiful-looking dahlia. Naruto, what is that for? Asked Ino curiously. It's for you, Ino-chan, said Naruto romantically, his eyes flashing red for a brief second. Really? said Ino shyly as her cheeks turned on a cute shade of pink. Yes, replied Naruto, before leaning forward, trapping Ino against the wall with his hand. Naruto could feel Ino's hot breath close to his face as the close contact to the opposite awakened her UAL instincts. Up close, Naruto could make out her pretty girl features. She had silky, light blonde hair and beautiful blue eyes. Naruto could tell that when she got older, she was going to be a real bombshell. You know, Ino-chan, began Naruto sultrily, you've got beautiful eyes. Stop saying stupid stuff like that, Naruto baka, replied Ino shyly as she looked down at the ground to avoid his gaze. Naruto reacted by placing a soft hand on her chin and tilting her head up. Ino felt like she could just drown inside of Naruto's ocean blue eyes. They went so deep that Ino felt like if she couldn't look away, she would be lost forever inside of them. Her breath hitched as Naruto leaned his face forward so that their noses were barely touching. No, said Naruto with a soft grin, I'll say whatever I like, Ino-chan. With that said, Naruto placed a chaste kiss on Ino's lips to test her reaction. Upon seeing her flushed cheeks, he leaned in for another. Ino couldn't help herself as she moaned quietly into the second kiss. Naruto's manly scent was intoxicating to her and she just couldn't get enough of it. I can taste her cherry-flavored lip gloss, thought Naruto as he pushed forward to deepen the kiss. When Ino got a hold of her senses, she immediately retaliated by wrapping her arms around Naruto's neck and kissing back with vigor. There was no way she'd lose at kissing against the dead last. What a feisty girl. I like her, said Yoko lustfully, to which Naruto mentally nodded. At long last, they pulled back. The need for oxygen greatly outweighed the need to continue their intense makeout session. Naruto gasped lightly whilst Ino took a while to regain her breath. That was some kiss, panted Ino, earning her a foxy grin from Naruto. There's more where that came from, replied Naruto as she leaned forward to lay some soft kisses on the side of Ino's neck. Quiet moans escaped Ino's lips as the sensation of Naruto's lips on her neck sent fire into her core, exciting her more than ever. Not even fantasies of Sasuke made her this hot. Before long, she found that Naruto had replaced Sasuke within her mind. Naruto-kun, cooed Ino as she pushed Naruto's head down so that he was eye level with her kiss here too, please. Gladly, replied Naruto as he used his hands to lift up her dark purple tube top, revealing a set of pale 70s, held in by a simple black, strapless bra. You're even more beautiful than I imagined, Ino-chan, said Naruto lustfully as he unhooked her bra, letting it fall to the ground. Don't say stuff like that, said Ino, her face red with embarrassment. Looking up to give Ino one last foxy grin, Naruto immediately began massaging her softly with his hands. They were quite perky and soft. A dreamy moan escaped Ino's lips when Naruto engulfed one of her nipples into his mouth. Ah, Naruto-kun, thought Ino,